Way to Fire YouTube video, where today we're going to do something slightly different, which is actually unboxing the Dreadball version 2.0 Kickstarter, which I have right here in front of me. So this arrived for me today, and we'll be looking at the contents and critiquing those, and looking forward in the future to hopefully play some Dreadball games. So I think one of the first things to say is that this is the Kickstarter edition, and you can see that this box is different from what will be the retail version available in about April 2018. And you can see that here, obviously we've got the Kickstarter logo stuck on here, and I'm sure the design of the box will be slightly different. The other really important thing as well about the Kickstarter edition is that it doesn't all come in the box, because there are extra bits such as the rulebook, which we'll look through in a moment, and some extra miniatures as well which come with the Kickstarter, which again we'll look through in a bit. But we will just start with the key components of the box itself. So you can see it's a normal high quality cardboard box. You can see with the pictures around the side showing all the painted miniatures that you get within the game. Sorry, I'm trying to get used to the video, there we go. Right. Painted up by the studio themselves, and on the back there's actually not much on the back at all, is there? It's pretty boring. But you know, it's got the Dreadball itself, but not much else on there. Okay, so let's have a look inside. I haven't even opened this yet. These are the two teams actually. So the art shows the two teams you're getting it. This is a robot team, and these are the Indige, the 9th tree stalkers, I think they're called. And let's have a look inside. So a normal, fairly thick box. Not the thickest, it has to be said. You get the board, which is really good quality here, but you can see there's some scratchings on mine, which is a bit irritating since I've literally just opened it. So yeah, that's maybe a bit of a concern for the connoisseur, but we'll look at that again in a bit more detail in a second. We can see a roster sheet, so this is for your team. These are usual sort of flip chart things, just glued down one edge. They're quite glossy actually, which is a bit surprising. Usually these things are quite sort of quite coarse, cheap paper really, but that's actually quite a bit better than you would have expected. In here, what have we got in here? Let's have a look. This is the ultimate. So this is extra. This is extra. Coaching areas for when you're playing Ultimate, so that's with more players, because on the back of the board, which we'll look at in a moment, there's not only the 2-player version on one side, but there's the Ultimate version which can play, I think it's 5 players can play on that one. So this is just extra team areas. Okay, inside the box itself, so we can see the layout here. You can see it's basically to store your miniatures, tokens, dice, cards. Now obviously the two teams that you get inside, the red is the robots and the green is these sort of Indige, which are like space monkeys really. And again, this seems to be a feature that Mantic are doing these days, which is to have colour-coded teams, and that's obviously to cater for the gaming market where people don't want to paint or don't have time to paint their miniatures, in which case you know, you can still play perfectly well without just looking at them. It's very visual, but the colours are completely different. Okay, so there's not too much else in here. There's a few extra figures here, which we'll talk about all of those figures and all those cards in just a moment. So we've actually had to zoom out a little bit, because you can see this is the normal Dreadball pitch for a 2-player game. You have a home team and an away team. You've got team areas for one team here and team area for the other team here, and this is the actual pitch with the score zones in red for one team and for yellow for the other team. And you can see, I'm going to show you what the first edition Dreadball pitch looked like now. That's quite a big difference. So if you've played Dreadball before, you will notice the first thing is that how much bigger this pitch is, and this is a single fold in this pitch. The hexes themselves are a little bit larger in the new edition compared to what before, and obviously there's a much expanded team area This is all you had in the original version, and now, like I say, you've got the area here for your cards, you've got the usual score chart and the rushes as well, and you've got a much larger area here for your team. I'll just show you a little bit more of that, including cheerleaders, action tokens, cards, all those extra things that you need, as well as your subs area as well, which you can see here. So huge difference in the size, and because of that it actually has to be folded a number more times. So you can see there is one fold here along the middle, which is cut across two things, and then two extra folds this way. So it actually is a six-piece board, which I guess adds a little bit of fragility to it. But one of the reasons they've made the board big, not only to expand these areas for the teams, is because if we turn it over, on the other side will be the ultimate pitch. And if you played first edition before, then that will have been on a neoprene mat that you got as a separate purchase. So this is the flip side for the 6-person Dreadball Ultimate game. And you can see that each of the teams has their own area. There's a central area here as well. This used to come as a separate add-on, but this is included in the main game, which is a good thing. But it obviously does mean that, you know, having to flip the board over adds a little bit more wear and tear perhaps on the board. The board's quite thick and it's got a lovely finish on it, really good high-res imaging on here. My worry, I think, is that if you're playing this on a normal club table or even at home, you're going to get scuffing very, very quickly on the side you don't use the most. So I think for most people that would obviously be the ultimate side. It's going to become quite scuffed and dog-eared, I think, at the folds. You can already see here, it's a tiny bit of white there. And that's just the way the paper's cut, obviously. I think that could potentially be a problem and a disappointment. So it might be worth Mantic considering at some point in the future releasing this as a single mat again. Because obviously you had that before in the neoprene, much more durable. Really, the card was great, but it's the wear and tear of flipping it over and putting it face down. Obviously, if you put down a surface for it to play on, something like neoprene or those sort of tacky things that you can get from hobby shops to sort of stop jigsaws moving around and stuff like that, then that would protect it. But that is a slight worry because obviously you're probably mostly going to be playing on a two-player side. So here we're going to look at the generic action cards that you get. So you can see that they are different colours for these, for different levels of experience and so on, that they can be used at, have different costs, such as this. And these are the sort of generic ones, pretty high quality, typical sort of cards, nice and glossy, look pretty good. Feel like they're okay. I think I'll sleeve these because obviously they're going to get a fair amount of play and they're going to be quite important, and obviously you're going to be shuffling them quite often. Also included is a second deck, again with more generic ones, but also in here we've got specific ones for the factions that come in the Kickstarter, the teams that come in the Kickstarter. So these are for the Matsudan here, there's some Indish ones, there's ones for the Cyborgs, and I believe that these special cards will come in each of the packs when you buy the revamped teams in the future. The other thing as well is that for those who've already got loads of teams, I believe there's going to be an option to purchase these packs as a separate purchase once the main Dreadball 2 goes to retail. Okay, so this is the models for the Draconis All-Stars, the Neobot team, so these are robots essentially. We've got guards here, the bigger models, jacks and strikers. So there are three different types of models you can get. Not all teams have the same three types. And then a pro model as well, which you can use to show when someone's been knocked down. So let's have a look at the quality of the models. So you can see hopefully there that it looks pretty good. There's not too much flash on them. They're very nicely sort of detailed. Certainly will come up quite well. I'm going to use a model from the original Kickstarter, one of my painted ones, which you know, I'm not the best painter. I've never claimed to be so, but apart from being they're a bit bigger, but they're a different model obviously. The quality looks very similar, not too different really, so I think perfectly usable either unpainted or if you want to paint them up. They look very nice as well. So here we have another one. This is the Jack, and again you can see him, looks pretty good. Flip him around the other way. The prone model. Who doesn't love an injured model? Whatever game system you're playing. And then we've got two different poses for the strikers. Two different ones for the guards as well. Actually, I didn't show you that. So you can see them there. And these are not all single piece models. Actually, you can see that there's a detachable leg here, which you just need to check. This leg here is separate. And you just need to check that they're all attached and that you've got all of them. It's not impossible that as they've arrived from the factory that some of these pieces might have gone missing. Mine look okay, but obviously not everybody's will necessarily, so just watch for that. There has been some comment about the balls as well, I think I've seen on a few places. So this is a first edition Dreadball, and this is the new version. So I think you can see there is quite a difference in the size there. To be honest, I really don't think that matters in the slightest. I mean, these balls are different. Their bases are designed to take the new ball with a little peg on it, as you can see. So, and the bases themselves are not as deep. They're the same size all around otherwise. So, I mean, I really don't think it makes a difference. And this ball didn't fit on all bases anyway previously because it had a wider base anyway. So, I don't think it's a huge difference if you're a new player or an experienced player. It's really sort of not a big deal. Here we have the models of the 9th Moon Tree Sharks, which is the Indage team. So here we have a guard. They only have the one guard model. You can see they've got a nice tail, which is armoured, and much nicer models than I think the robots from an aesthetic point of view. They look a bit unique, and these guys have been sort of around in the Warpath universe, which is where this is set, for a while. They have models in Dead Zone, for instance. Here's the prone one, just resting. We have two jacks. Okay, two different poses here for the jacks. One slightly more active, walking forwards, and the other slightly more sort of ready to do something else. And again, tails look really nice on them. And two strikers. So one pointing as if he's just thrown a long pass or something, and the other sort of charging as if he's just receiving. And again, I really like those. They're quite a lot bigger. I used the human again. They're quite a lot bigger than I would have thought. So the Indage, if you know from, say, Dead Zone, one of the Mantic's other games, which also has this race, they're like space monkeys. They're not very big at all. So these guys are clearly the guys who've had a more nutritious diet, because they're bigger than this human model here from the Trontech team. So that's interesting. But yeah, I think they're really nice models, very nice sculpts, and the plastic looks really good. So this is just to show the full team that you get. So this is the Indage, of course. So you get three guards, 6 jacks, 6 strikers, and 3 pro models. And it's similar for the Neobots, of course. So you get quite a big quite a large amount of quite a large amount of players there to use. Now, obviously, this is a Kickstarter edition. I'm not sure if the retail version will have quite the same, or whether they're slightly less. This is slightly more than the purchase boxes usually bring, by a couple of models, I think, but that might be changing, of course, as they revamp to 2nd edition. Here we have some of the other models that are from the game. We have a Refbot. So the Refbot is very similar in some ways to the one from the 1st edition. Helmet's a bit different. Again, really nice. I love the Refbots. It's so characterful. This one's holding up what looks like a card to send someone off. Really good. And that's quite important because fouls are more of a feature of this game than they were in the original edition. We then have a rush tracker. This guy is amazing. I think he's brilliant. It's like a little TV robot, sort of zipping. You can imagine him zipping around above the pitch, sort of recording all the action. He's really good. I really like that. And then there is a score tracker, which is basically it's like a trophy, isn't it? So there's a Dreadball on the top there of like a pedestal. I really like that as well. I think if they painted that up in a suitable sort of gold or silver colour, I think it would look really nice. So here's the most important bit, the rulebook itself. So the rulebook for the Kickstarter edition is very different from the retail version when that goes on sale, because it is huge. It's soft back, you can see how thick it is there, and that comes in at a weighty 208 pages. It's about sort of A5 size, I think, similar sort of format to quite a lot of the smaller scale rulebooks that you get now for systems. But you can see that it's not only the rules for the normal Dreadball game, and they usually start with a quick introduction, run through of a game in midpoint here, and it sort of talks you through the activities. The actions that you can do is sort of followed by example, and roll the dice separately if you want, and it talks you through the examples of that, which is quite a good way of doing it. That's surprisingly early on, before it's even taught you anything. It's on page 6 and 7 that starts, which I think you probably could do understanding a little bit about the rules before you just sort of jumped into a game, but that's the way Mantic seem to be making their games at the minute, and it certainly allows you to get a feel for the game if you've no idea before. The pages themselves, very good quality, glossy, colours amazing. Again, like I say, walking through the first sort of rushes of a game. And you know, for someone who hasn't played Dreadball much at all, I think it'd be really useful. I played it a few times in first edition, but I haven't played it much, as you might be able to tell. I'm looking very much forward to playing this now, because I think the way it's laid out is very sort of intuitive, and also the teams really do allow a lot more versatility from what was originally in the previous edition. A lot more balancing has been done to make teams more competitive at all levels, whereas there was a bit of a problem with the older teams becoming a little bit obsolete in the first edition, but that seems to have been really dealt with in this edition. And you can see, so we're talking through that same first game, quite a bit there, so like about 10 pages really on that first game, 10, 12 pages, and then we come on to the rules. This is the classic picture from the first edition, and again you can see, here he is, that eye in the sky, amazing. And you can see he talks through all the different bits now. Talks through the abilities, the stat line charts, what the different things are, guards, jacks, strikers, what they actually mean, the bonuses they get, so they get set bonuses now, depending on what role they have. Talks you through all the different things, how you use dice, how you use coaching dice, how you use cards, how the fans interact with it, how the ball moves, how players move, and it's actually very sort of well laid out, I think. And certainly sort of seems to be very easy to follow, and after a few games I don't think you'd be using this book much at all, which is probably a good thing, because for Kickstarter backers, obviously this book actually is a bit awkward, I would say, because it's actually a bit too big, and the rules don't take up that much. The basic rules take up to from about page 20 to about page 45, 46, about that sort of level. Then you get all the special rules, which is good. Then you start talking about playing Dreadball Ultimate, so that's the 6-player version, again with the pitch that we looked at before. So there's a few rules on that. Then it talks about sort of league play and competitive play, a bit about the universe in which it's set. These are the leagues here, how to make your team and everything like that. So actually, you know, we're up to page 86 here, and we really have only had about 20 pages of rules, which is great, but it means this book at 208 pages becomes a little bit of a hefty tome to be lugging around, and it's obviously going to get quite dog-eared pretty quickly. We move on a little bit here. There's all the abilities that you get, but what I want to show you is here. Okay, so this is where it's very different from what's going to be the retail version, because this section from page 111 to page 208, yeah, 111 to 208 is all the teams from the previous 6 seasons. So here we start with Trontech 29ers, so that's what on the models I showed you before. They've been rebalanced so that they're now more competitive, particularly so for some of the like the early ones, like these guys, the Midgard Delvers. They were traditionally sort of known as being pretty rubbish towards the end of the original Dead Zone 1. Dead Zone, sorry, Dreadball 1. And you can see that all the teams have got their own nice couple of pages telling you exactly who's a guard, jack, who's a striker, all their sort of advancements in a campaign, their stat lines, what they get, coaching dice, what cards they get, and their special abilities. And they really are good, nicely colour coded. Oddly and slightly annoyingly to me, not in strict alphabetical order, which is a bit irritating, it has to be said, because it would have been very simple to do that. I think they've done it by seasons, but if you didn't know the seasons, that would be a bit annoying. Like, I don't necessarily know. Here, though, I want to show you this one. So this is another one of the Kickstarter teams, the Matsudon Tectonics, these great big fat lizard guys. So there's their team line in there, their team profile, obviously 9mm sharp, which we talked about. Another one of the Kickstarters who had I'd forgotten about, actually. I'd forgotten these were even funded, because they're right at the end of the Kickstarter. The New Eden Revenants, these are cyborgs. They actually look quite cool. I've forgotten all about these, but we'll look at those models in a moment. And then a few of the other slightly more random ones where you sort of make up the team themselves, so that's the Mechanites and stuff like that. So these are quite complex. You certainly wouldn't want to start with these as a beginning player, I don't think. And then obviously at the end we've got all of your MVPs. So these are the hired players. They work slightly differently than they used to, but they're available for any team, or most teams, to be able to sort of hire for leagues or for a one-game basis. That actually is a good point I didn't mention earlier on. Another big change for the second edition is that the use of captains and special captain cards as well. So they are things that are new to this edition. The cards for the captains aren't available yet. They're coming out later, the second wave for the Kickstarter, so they're not in this, so you can't use those now. They're not even released as like a PDF yet, so you can't play with those. But obviously you can play the game in its entirety otherwise at the moment, and you can use all of your first edition models that you might have as well. So that's a hell of a book, really nicely presented. I've read the rules, but I'm certainly not familiar with it yet. I'm hoping to get some games in very soon, and hopefully some of those will be videoed as well, and we will show you those as we do them. I just want to show you these very quickly. These are the score markers for using the ultimate versions, the red and white ones with their tokens, which I haven't bothered to put out here, are for the base game, and then these are for the extra strike team, for the extra teams that you would use in playing Dreadball Ultimate, obviously with the extra counters there. So they're all colour coded, so that's actually quite nice. They didn't actually come in the box; they're in a separate bit. They don't fit in the actual core box, but there is a space for them in the inset, so you can insert them all there. So another Kickstarter exclusive, this Dreadball dice cup. This is actually quite nice, really nice leather cup with stitching along the sides, Dreadball written across here. It's interesting they say Dreadball everywhere, so there's no Dreadball 2.0 or anything like that, although it is, of course, it's just Dreadball. And I think that's, I think this cup's really nice little feature. Is it necessary? No, but it's a Kickstarter exclusive, and those are the sort of things that you get with Kickstarters, so a really nice touch. So Kickstarter exclusive, the purple plastic is the New Eden Revenants, the cyborg team. So this comes, it's not going to be in the core set. The core set will just be the robots and the Indige. So here we have the models. We have a Prone Z. We have a Orc and a Nameless Guard. They're actually really nice. I like the Nameless. And then the Orc as well. He's got this sort of cybernetic arms on him. It's very nice models. We have two jacks, both humans, a female and a male, I think. Again, quite nice sculpts. And then we have two strikers, an Asterion and a Judwin. The Asterion, I think, looks very much like being based on a cast from one of the Asterion players. See, this one's warped a little bit, or been damaged a little bit in transit. Nothing too terrible at all. In fact, actually, the miniatures have been quite good. They've not really suffered too much from being in a box there at all. So this team is the one I was most excited about. This is the Matsudon Tectonics. So this is a new race to the Warpath universe. And here we have some They're like giant bloated lizards, really. These are the guards, and I think this one, like, it's reaching out and going, "Rah!" A really nice model, and these belt plates all pushing into his big fat tummy. Oh, really nice. I really like these. And sort of a bit Japanese-esque sumo wrestler sort of looking from the armour, samurai sort of sumo sort of armour, but I think, you know, they are really, really nice. These two are the guards, as I said. We've got then 3 jacks, no strikers. You might guess why there's no strikers in this team, because of the size of them. But they're really, really nice. Just show the backs on those as well. This guy running, imagine that running at you, jeez. Really nice detail on those. I think they'll paint out really nice, and if you look at in the book, the studio ones are really, really nicely painted up, and they look fantastic, hold the detail brilliantly. Now, the plastic ones might have a little bit less detail, of course, because those studio ones would have been painted on the original resin, but they do look really, really nice still. This is the prone one, a prone jack by the looks of it. Oh, look at these fat rolls, amazing. They're going to look really good. I really, really, really like them. So now we're on to the captains. Okay, so this is a new feature, and I think when they did the Kickstarter, they didn't even know exactly what they were going to do with these. They were just going to, these were sort of funded as MVPs, but actually they've now used them as these captain models. So this is the one for the robot team, the Neobots, and he's called Romeo Blue. He looks like much like the other robots, as you can imagine. There's one of the other ones just next to him. But I think he looks quite good. He's interesting. He's not, you know, hugely different, but he's got a slightly different helmet, which is the principal thing with him. But he'll look good, you know, fine. He's a robot, isn't he? Here comes the Indage one. So this is his name. I'm going to try this now. Nahautl. That's nothing like what it probably is, but you can see he's quite nice. I really like all the sort of winged stuff on the back of his shoulders here. His helmet's very much, it reminds you a bit of the Green Goblin from the Spider-Man movies. Towel, really good at the back, really nice model. I like the Indage a lot. Here we've got the cyborg captain, Frank Burke, so obviously a human originally. Again, looks pretty good. Sort of half armoured, half cybernetic, these guys. Yeah, good. And the absolute beast. This is Raiden, the Matsudon captain. And he's got like a filthy, nasty helmet on there. You can see that well enough there. That is absolutely brilliant. And he's got extra detail on his armour. So obviously, if you pick that out with sort of gold or something, it's going to look really, really nice. He's got an extra set of these things at the back here. The other guy's got 2, he's got 4. So he's got lots of little features that really make him stand out. Oh, he's amazing. Going to the top of the painting table for Dreadball, definitely. So, what are we going to say about Dreadball then? Well, certainly looking at the game, it looks really, really nice. The board is high quality, really good digital imaging on there. I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that it's a 2-sided. I really do think that ultimate board is going to take a bit of a pasting. And I mean, it'll still be usable, won't it? But you just don't want to lose that quality, so just bear that in mind when you start playing. Similarly, the book is excellent, really, really excellent. But I think it's again going to take a bit of a beating. This spine, this softback spine, is not going to last long if you are going backwards and forwards all the time for rules when you're learning to play. And also, if you've got different teams, all the teams are at the back here, it would almost be better if they'd split that into 2. Just had a normal book, which would be the same book that you would have got in the core sort of retail version, and then a separate book with all the teams in for those who are Kickstarter backers. I don't really know why they didn't do it. Maybe it's commercial decisions or whatever, or they wanted to give it this big meaty tome, I'm not sure. Obviously, when it comes to retail, the core game will only have those 2 teams. It'll have the robots and it'll have the Indage. The other 2 teams are Kickstarter ones, the exclusive ones. So I think they'll go to retail through Mantic site later on, which is often what they do. So they may not be Kickstarter exclusive, they might be sort of sold later on. All of the teams as well, when they're repackaged, will have their own stat line in them. So all the extra stats that you get from here are sort of useful, but they're not essential. If you're going to buy things new anyway, you don't actually need those, so the retail version will be perfectly fine. Obviously, if you're picking them up second hand, I'm not quite sure what they'll do there. Presumably there'll be PDFs of them, or there'll probably be some sort of battle scribe file or something like that for you to make your teams anyway, so you have all the details in some other way. That tends to be what Mantic do, in that they produce, they encourage you to buy their games, but when you're actually playing the games, they sort of allow it to be freely accessed either through PDFs on their own site or through sort of team building sites, like say like Battlescribe or something else. So, I mean, looking at the quality of the miniatures look really, really good. They're probably a step up again. They continue to improve their plastic miniatures to Mantic, and these ones I think are really good. I mean, I really couldn't fault them. There's hardly any detail lost anywhere on them. Better even than some of their Walking Dead models, which I think were well received as well. So certainly I can't see any miscasting on my sort of quick look through those. How the game plays, I couldn't really say. I haven't played enough Dreadball to say what first edition played like, how much this has improved over that version, whether there are any differences. I know a lot of the teams have been rebalanced. There's a lot of sort of thought gone into how they can all be competitive, and I believe that you know, we should see a lot more support from Mantic in the future in running tournaments and producing sort of online leagues as well. So I really do hope that that is something that they do, because Dreadball had a huge following when it first started back in 2012, I think, and it really has drifted away, unfortunately, over the last few years, been taken over by other games such as Blood Bowl, Guild Ball and things like that. And that's a bit unfortunate, because it clearly is a very good game. It clearly fills a niche as well. There isn't really a science fiction sports game of this sort of calibre out there on the market. And I think, you know, playing into that and feeding into their other parts of their Warpath universe, so their, if you play Dead Zone or Warpath or Star Saga, there are other sort of board games and miniature games, then it all feeds into the same overarching environment and sort of galaxy sort of overview. So I think that's a really good plus for them. It allows them to develop new races like those Mastodons. I really hope they take them into Dead Zone, because that's one of my favourite games as well. But I think, you know, all in all, high quality product, couple of misgivings about a few things, but I think, you know, really, really does look very, very good. So well done, Mantic, and I'm looking very much forward to playing some games, and hopefully we'll get some videos up there soon for you to watch as well. Thanks very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and listen out for the Way to Fire podcast, and also catch us on the Way to Fire Facebook page. Thanks very much. Take care.